digital Beyond Photos slideshow. If you've ever wanted to use a tablet or a computer to create art fabrics, first of all, you have to figure out your own approach and style. There are so many options and there are so many tools that make things really quick that the issue becomes not so much one of creating images, but of editing images. Some of the things I'm going to cover in this presentation are some approaches and apps to use for both figurative and abstract artwork, looking at some artists and some artwork that gives you different examples of how this work can be used, these tools can be used, and a few resources and demos. The first part here, a lot of people think that technology is something that is cheating. And I think that David Hockney, to me, puts it best that the technology is not going to make the pictures different, but someone using it will. So think of your computer, your tablet, your digital apps as just another kind of brush or another kind of sewing machine. And remember that when people started out making quilts on machines, there were probably some people who thought that was cheating. I think there probably still are people that think that's cheating. David Hockney is a painter who's very gifted with his own art in oils and acrylics, but has embraced digital media for quite a long time. Does prints of his iPad paintings. And I like this quote of his: "The moment you cheat for the sake of beauty, you know you're an artist." There are apps that just simply do a one-step, click it, and you've altered your image. For example, this beautiful photo of a photograph of a lily by Paulette Cornish, she did a little study, and you've got images that transform that into almost abstract paintings. You can also use apps to transform an image into a black and white pattern that can be used as a thermofax or a stencil. And with an image like this, very kind of ordinary, I took it through an app called ImaEngine, tried several different versions, had it printed as a whole cloth piece of fabric, and then used it as a background for this particular Big Bend cactus piece. The thing that makes apps more, I think, interesting and your own are to use a combination of several apps together so that you're not just depending on what one developer did, but by combining them you get kind of a look for your own work that's completely unique. Drawing and painting for many people, particularly drawing, is scary. It's something they're not good at or feel like, other people have that skill, but I don't, or other people have that talent, but I don't. And just putting a mark on paper or on a canvas or on a piece of fabric can feel intimidating and brings in all your inner critics. But if you start with children's apps, you can be surprised at what very simple tools can do to make a really interesting image that isn't competing with kind of the masters of drawing. One that I like to use is NGA Art Zone, and it provides a bunch of abstract brushes that are, like the kind of tools that perhaps Jackson Pollock and Franz Kline used. You can also design collages using apps, and by taking images of your own drawings, layering, patterning, putting them together. Some apps take images and turn them into different kinds of patterns, which then if you crop and add to, you've ended up with something that could be a pattern for a pieced quilt or an applique quilt. Tracing photos is a way to kind of get it right, but also to add kind of character and quality to a photograph that makes it your own. You can use simple tools and to move up to more sophisticated ones like these in the app Tayasuki Sketches. And with some of these photo apps, you can also take a realistic image and transform it into something completely abstract, but retaining perhaps the texture or the colors or the proportion. Pattern apps will take images or drawings and completely transform them into different versions, different compositions. And you can also then find virtual media, so ink apps and watercolor apps and oil painting apps, all of which you can either both draw original work, trace and copy your own images, or import photos and alter them. Those transformations can be pretty straightforward or quite radical. Painterly app transformations take your photos and turn them into bright expressionist images, printmaker-like quality images. It's amazing what you can do with just, a simple picture of roast carrots or lilies. Ticket to an event becomes an interesting landscape. And simple drawings can be done with a lot of those apps, as well as collages. You can use apps to simplify into pixels, to trace, to expand, and combine images. Using your own artwork, here's a art quilt I did on the left. Then it was transformed by cutting it up and stitching it together a new way. And then I took a photograph and ended up with yet a third quilt based on the same imagery. Here's some artists that I admire. I recommend that you look in their websites and see the digital work that they're doing. Jane Dunawall does mirrored repeats with spoon flower and then adds surface design and combines them in these both richly vibrant pieces that also have wonderful serenity to them. Kim Savada did this arched piece. It's a pieced quilt using fabrics that she designed using her iPad, and the image itself was a composition that she worked on with the iPad. I do a lot of fabrics that I just cut up and use the same way I would any other commercial fabric. Gay Lasher is one of the first artists to do some work with whole cloth, digitally altered images. She uses Adobe Photoshop rather than apps. I think apps are a lot faster than Adobe Photoshop, but it really depends on your skill set and how you like to work. Here's a small piece done with Megaphoto and a drawing from Alicia Merritt. I think she's doing these wonderful small 16 by 16 inch pieces are just very exciting. And Betty Hahn also is doing some iPad painted images and then quilting them with all manner of decorative stitches. The detail. They're wonderful pieces. Tanya Brown takes it one more step towards realism by using 3D modeling tools on her computer and then printing them whole cloth and stitching them. My work is certainly simpler than Tanya's, and here's an example of using fabrics basically in a pieced and applique quilt that uses all fabrics designed on the iPad. another in the same little series. And some newer work. This is a piece of art quilt that's done with a painting app. Carolyn Skye has taken her photographs and transformed them to the point that you might not even realize they were based on photos. They become these wonderful compositions of color, light, and form. And on another way of working, if you don't want to actually design fabric or quilts on the iPad, you can still use them as compositional aids. So here's a traced image of a photo that then became the basis of a pattern for a art quilt using Christine Staver's own batiqued and rusted fabrics. I like to work sometimes taking photographs of art quilts I've made and then transforming them into whole new pieces of fabric. You can look through your sketchbooks and find ways to photograph, alter, and layer your own images. Here are some of the apps that I've been using. I will tell you, since I made the slideshow, Doodle Dandy is no longer functioning. As with other digital tools, the developers lose interest, they're not making enough money, they discontinue updating for the new iOS versions, and you'll have to keep kind of resourcing new ways to do some of the things you used to do on a favorite app. It always makes me mad when one of my favorite apps disappears. Printing on fabric. There's custom printing. There's several companies that do printing. Here are some resources, and you can check back with these when you're ready to print. And I have to tell you, of course, about my own iPad course. I have one starting this fall and another in early part of 2020. This is Art on the iPad, a 7-week online course with tutorials for all these wonderful apps I've been showing you.